study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more, no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I'm gonna lay my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay my sword and shield down by the riverside and study war no more. Well, I ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more. No, I ain't gonna study war no more. No more. Gonna study war no more. Study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I'm gonna travel my long white road down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna travel my long white road down by the riverside and study war no more. No, I ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more. No, I ain't gonna study war no more, no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Gonna study war no more. No, I ain't gonna study war no more. I'm gonna lay my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay my burden down by the riverside and study war no more. Gonna study war no more.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much. Another
Thank
big
you.
a round of applause for the band. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Hello and welcome everybody to the first ever Northside Drive Home Companion Part 2. Some of you were able to be here the last time, and
sequel.
we had a hoot.
It's
didn't
the
we?
sequel.
Oh, the sequel, Part 2.
Part two.
Well, welcome to the sequel. Thanks to all of you who could choose to show up. Not everybody could do so, having to circumnavigate a polarizing national political election, also a worldwide pandemic. But other than that, you just ambled on in. So not everybody could choose to come, but I'm glad that you could choose to come. There are people that have worked hard to make us feel safe, and I appreciate all who did so. The names I have are Sid Janney, Barbara Atchley, Daniel Hedrick, Nick Bonner. All of them worked, and then also Karen, Susan, and Linda Cataray are our bouncers tonight. So if you don't observe the protocol, no home companion for you. So you're out. Also, I always want to thank Brian Knight, who is running audio up there. Let's give a big hand to Brian. There are a lot more moving parts in this than on a usual Sunday morning, so I appreciate that. Now back to the band again. You know the guy here on the lead guitar, coming all the way from Dahlonega, Georgia, the envy of Clint Black and Josh Turner. That would be Kurt Thomas. Let's give him a welcome.
Hey, everybody.
And also, Kurt has a guest. Would you introduce Barry?
Yes, this is everybody. This is Barry Waldrop, one of the finest pickers in Georgia and Alabama. Y'all give it up for Mr. Barry Waldrop, everybody.
Some of the time, Barry, when Kurt has played Eddie's Attic, it's always been Northside Drive Pack a Pew. And so we have packed out the place and have heard you play there. So welcome, glad you're here tonight. And over there on bass is the amazing Diane DeLee. Applause for Diane. And on the piano tonight is Wonder Woman Valerie Waters. Valerie, welcome. Now, we have some special guests here tonight. I saw come in the back there, retired Brigadier General Bill Welch and Holly Welch. We're glad that you all are here. Liz introduced them years ago, and we had the honor of tying the knot at the wedding years ago. Welcome. Louis Bozard is here all the way from Charlotte. You almost win the Faraway Award. And my next door neighbors, Pete and AJ, are here. And so welcome, Pete and AJ. Oh, and one more special person. I'm sure, and all of you are special. I may be leaving people out. Sorry about that. But my sister is here, Virginia Walker from Houston, Texas. Thanks for coming here. Thank you so much for making it. All right. Also, I wanted to thank Marshall Duell and Murty Cope. You see all of these quilts that are hanging around here? They are the king and queen of quilts. And they have worked hard and have made most of these. Some of you have brought quilts tonight, but thanks so much for doing so, Marshall and Murty. A quilt, if I had to define it, is a fabric made of disconnected pieces stitched together to tell a story. You've told a lot of stories. Matter of fact, every Sunday in here is sort of a spiritual quilting bee, isn't it? We bring the pieces of our lives, stitch them together with the promises of God, and it makes a holy story. Now, more on the quilts later. Time for another song. Here's a song written by a fellow named John Brazelton Fillmore Wright. Yeah, that is a mouthful. They called him JBF, I think for short. He's from Tennessee, but had to live out his life in Limestone, Texas. I don't know what he did to deserve that. But he was a gospel writer, gospel song writer, and got some songs published with the Stamps Baxter group. The song we're about to hear, they paid him $36, and Mr. Stamps said, you'll get royalties from it for the rest of time. And then Mr. Stamps died, and the rest of the family did not honor the contract. And so $36 is what he got paid for this song. It's Precious Memories. You've heard it from Johnny Cash and George Jones. Now you hear it from Kurt Thomas and friends.
Precious memory, unseen angel, sent from somewhere to my soul. How they linger ever near me, and the sacred past unfold. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold.
Now, after I'd been here a few years, you gave me the gift of a sabbatical leave, and I prepared to go all the way to Africa and then to Oxford, England. But on the day that I headed out, Walter Grant had put together a festival of preaching, and the first preacher was Fred Craddock. I was still here on that day, so he was preaching, I was leaving. Fred Craddock is about that tall, and so he needed some help getting into the pulpit. I gave him a Coca-Cola stand and a volleyball to stand on, and he preached from that, kind of. And you know the voice of Fred Craddock, it's a bit of a sing-song. It sounds like the sound of wind whistling through a splinter in a fence post. That's Fred Craddock. And so he got up and said, now I know that James is going on sabbatical and you're putting on this big celebration, this big hoop-de-doo, but I've got some bad news for you. He's coming back.
Precious Father, loving Mother, fly across the lonely year. And oh, home scene of my childhood, in fond memory appear. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold.
Now, as these scenes unfold, part of being a pastor is that you have let me stand with you at times when you experienced great pain, but also had the gift of great promise. One of those times was when Karen Bjorner died. When Karen died, I had just gone to see Dean Maltby. She had given me a lapel pin from 1939 from the Baptist World Alliance here in Atlanta. Karen Bjorner's father had preached in that service, and that 1939 pin had heard him speak. And she had given it to me, and I was going to give it to Karen, and I got home, and Lois Peacock was on the phone saying, Karen has died at the hospital. And I went to the hospital, to Piedmont, there in the emergency room. The family had spent all day long, starting at 9 in the morning. She had died later in the afternoon, and we were there until midnight. We were all exhausted, and it was time for the family to go home, but they had to collect jewels and such. And Radar, who was in his 90s then, he's 103 the end of this month. But at that time, he said, is it all right if the pastor, he's Norwegian, by the way, is it all right if the pastor just brought us these things later? And they said, sure. We said a prayer. I knelt with Radar there in the emergency room by the stretcher. I held Karen's hand, and with her wedding ring that she had not taken off since the 1940s when they married. We prayed, the family left. I put the ring in my pocket, and the next day wore the blazer over to Radar's house and pulled out, and in one hand I had a ring that had been worn since the 40s, and I had a lapel pin that had heard her father speak in 1939. Well, that's what a pastor does, and what you've allowed me to do all these 23 years. Stand with you and hold experiences of great pain, but also moments of good promise.
As I travel on life's pathway, I know not what the years may hold. As I ponder, hope grows fonder. Precious memories flood my soul. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. Precious sacred scenes unfold.
All right, thank you. Thank you. That one always makes me cry.
Oh, don't play with that one, Paul. It makes me cry.
All right, at this time, I'm going to call up my Sacred Harp singer friends. And these are the Northside Drive Sacred Harp Singers, and we've sung together how long? 10 minutes? 25 minutes ago. And you'll be able to tell that. Come on in. Sacred harp is an American tradition, started in the Northeast and worked its way down south, and you get to hold a hymnal that is that wide and that short. And in it, the sacred harp tradition is that you sing the shaped notes first, fa, sol, la, mi, right? And so in the tradition of that, we're going to sing the shaped notes through first, then we will sing the stanzas. Now, in the shaped note hymnal, this hymn is called New Britain. You know it by another name. It's called Amazing Grace. All right, everybody. Thank you for indulging me. I just knew that we had to have some Sacred Heart music at this gathering tonight.
That's a mighty fine singer.
Do what? Mighty fine?
Mighty fine.
Oh, good. Oh, good. And that comes from a professional, doesn't it?
Oh, no. Well.
All right. In a moment, I'm going to call on Hal Meeks if you want to go ahead and make your way up here. I will talk about the quilts just a little bit more. Remember that a quilt is a fabric with a story stitched right in. Do I need to hold the microphone closer? Liz? God bless you. A few things about these. On the altar here is a piece of cloth that I brought from the Zambezi River when I was in Zambia and Zimbabwe a few years ago. I brought it back and I said to Murdy Cope, what can we do with this? And she said, any piece of cloth you can make a quilt out of it. And so she turned this, and the backing is all about fish and fishermen. Also, the mandala quilt that I believe is right over here, the mandala quilt is an intricate geometric configuration that invites focus. And then Marshall did this one over here, right? And it is a Celtic cross that he used to work on his own spirituality, I think, and also kind of in honor and in memory of the time he was in Iona when he went with our youth group on pilgrimage years ago. And then where is the whimsical chicken? Oh, they're out there. There's a whimsical chicken that's out there, and as many chickens as Baptist preachers have put into the ministry, the whimsical chicken is not of that. When I pastored in the country 1,000 years ago, and I'd go visit all the country people at the end of the dirt roads, some accused me that when I would drive up at the front of the house, all the chickens would see me coming, and they would run out from under the porch, lay down, and put their feet together because they knew their time had come. So I particularly want to see the chicken quilt. And now, introducing this young man at the microphone here, it's like Hart will do says of him. Some people tell funny stories, but Hal tells stories funny. He's a lawyer, a musician, a friend, a pastor search committee glutton for punishment, and stunt double for Briscoe Darling on the Andy Griffith Show. Give it up for Hal Meeks.
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me all right in this microphone? Brian assured me that Kurt had brought with him a professional microphone that would pick up both my voice and my guitar and make me sound the best I've ever heard. And hearing Kurt sing on it, I thought, damn, it works. He sounds fabulous, so I look forward to singing in this highfalutin mic. Now, on this occasion, and on a number of church occasions, I've been called on to write a tune for James. He's already referenced his first sabbatical when I wrote and performed, he wants to get away to Zimbabwe. I don't know what to say, but James, so long. Hope you have 3 months of ease, doing as you please. Don't bring back a rare disease when you come home. And there were other verses. But as a going away present, I want James to have an autographed copy of the first song written in his honor. On the occasion of his 20th anniversary in the church, I wrote one that was a little more serious for James that included the verse of, to thank you because you've held us close till you had to let one go. When losses tried to drag us down, you fought the undertow. You give as good a send-off as ever can be found. We glimpse a little heaven when you put one in the ground. I have an autographed copy of that for you as well. Now, James said my time here, that I could do anything I wanted, but I could only do it for 5 minutes. So I'm going to give you the short version of 3 experiences I've had and enjoyed with James over the years, and they're all somewhat music related. One involved going to see Doc Scott, the last medicine show performer in North Georgia. I still have the snake oil that Doc Scott gave me, and I see James is holding one up. I was going to gift this to you. I've got, put a little ginger ale with it. I've got the original Doc Scott medicine show item that he gave me, along with an autographed picture of Doc and his early American home remedies. So James and I still have ours, and we still have our books. Who also visited that day were Mary Dutton and Aline Cofield. And unfortunately, they didn't take their medicine as long as we have, so they're not here to testify about that occasion. Thank you very much. The other thing that, another musical experience James introduced me to was shape note singing. And he said, you know, Hal, you sing really loud through your nose, and there's a market for that. Says, I can introduce you to like-minded people who just sing as full-throated loud as they can, and I think you'd like it, and I did. I didn't know shape note singing growing up. I took piano lessons, but I took it from people who could read, and we had moved a little further along in musicality in Waycross by the time I came along. And then the last thing I would mention is, thank you, I'll give that to him, is I don't know if I introduced James to Kate Campbell or he introduced Kate Campbell to me. But we are both huge Kate Campbell fans, and we even had the occasion to have Kate come and sing a private concert for us in the basement of the Kenton, thank you for that fill-in. I'm doing that a lot. When Google's not around, I appreciate you being there. So we enjoyed Kate in person, and if I still have any of my 5 minutes left, I'll sing a Kate Campbell song. And this sounds so nice and loud, I might need to back off a little bit, but now Kate has some songs that will make you cry. And I practiced a couple of them in preparation for today, and my wife said, oh, no, no, no. Do a happy one, do an upbeat one. And this one is about the New South, how we are progressing down here below the Mason-Dixon line. And it's good to sing it after you've sung 9 verses of Amazing Grace. Friday morning, I was down at the Starbucks, sipping on a latte with the fat left out. I had a bagel and a sudden revelation. We're all living in the New South. They make Mercedes down in Vance, Alabama. Tennessee is cranking Nissans out. I read about it in the Wall Street Journal. We're all living in the New South. They'll valet park you at the Galleria and hang your coat up by the door. They take your check, your MasterCard or Visa. They love our money at them Yankee stores. It's getting hard to find grits and gravy. I know you know what I'm talking about. That's the price you have to pay for progress, to be living in the New South. We pulled ourselves up out of old man's river and cut away them kudzu vines. It took a while, but I think we'll make it. We can finally put these blues behind. Traded in our boots for Italian loafers. Bichon Frises are our new hounds. Thanks to Disney World and Coca-Cola, we're all living in the New South. Come on and join us in the New South.
All right, thank you.
Incredible.
The one and only Hal Meeks. Thank you. Thank you. All right, and now we had last time the Johnson family singers. They were so popular, they got invited back. So Andrea, Norm, Leah, and Aaron, you all come back here. This was their first debut a month ago, and they sang Michael Row the Boat Ashore, right? And here they come singing another song, and it's going to be I Got Peace Like a River, right? Right. All right, more about that in a moment. But before you sing, I wondered if you could help us sing happy birthday to somebody. Do you know that it's somebody's birthday today? And I know that you know that it's Ed Asner's birthday. That's right, it really is Ed Asner's. But it's also Kurt Thomas's birthday. And I don't know if you sing happy birthday to me or how you do that. You could do it. You could do it. All right. Well, let's sing happy birthday to Kurt, and the Johnsons will help us do so. Go.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kurt. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Kurt. He's the muse that's making all this happen. I remember when we were setting the dates, he said, well, that's my birthday. And I didn't know if we should not have it or should have two of them on your birthday, but glad you're doing that. Let's see. Now, we're going to do Peace Like a River. And now some of these people wearing masks and such maybe can't sing, but they could do the hand signs,
Yes,
right?
definitely.
All right, you want to tell us what that
Yes.
is going to be like?
Yes, since y'all can't sing with us, y'all join us on the motions. We'll do peace like a river, we'll do love like an ocean, and we'll do joy like a fountain. And y'all can join us that way.
Do you need her to go over that again? You got it, you got it. Okay, go for it. The Johnsons.
You take your mask off. There you go. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul.
All righty, thank you. Thank you. I think Leah's ready to take a bow. And Aaron. Thank you all. You can be seated. There we go. The all ukulele family band. It's so dangerous, in fact, somebody almost had to have leg surgery here. It takes a while to recover from it. Now, the next song I had not known, but Kurt Thomas introduced me to. It's about Grandma and it's about Papa. I remember for my sister and for me, when we would go over to our Mama's and Papa's house, you could walk in the door and tell if she had baked a pound cake that day. You could walk all the way up the aisle or all the way up the hallway from the front door and smell that pound cake that was sitting on top of the refrigerator. Now, Virginia and I grew up in a town, all four of our grandparents were alive, living within a mile of our house until I was 17 years old. So I got to know them really well. So when we would come in their house, we would spend time with Mamaw and Papaw. Now, Papaw, as I told you last time, was 10 feet tall and weighed 500 pounds. And he was a storyteller, and he did a lot of things, including being a blacksmith for most of his life. But one of the things that he would do is that he would take a nap on his bed. Now, in his bedroom, there was a feather mattress, and there were springs under it. They weren't box springs, they were just springs. And it was sort of a gravity well of the cosmos, you know, that once Papaw was in the bed, everything sort of moved to the center of gravity for that. And when all of our cousins would come from Charlotte and Florida and all sorts of places, all the cousins and uncles and aunts, or aunts, would be there, and when it came nighttime, everybody had to find a bed, and usually somebody had to end up sleeping with Papaw. And it was usually Johnny or Harold or Don. In other words, all the troublemakers in the family, that was their punishment. They had to sleep with Papaw. We fortunately had a house across the town, a mile away, and didn't have to do that. But in sleeping with Papaw, it was quite the adventure. His snoring and rolling around, and he had a string tied onto a pull cord on the light that was suspended in the middle of the room. Did you all have grandpas that did that? I think it was a boilerplate thing for being a grandpa. And so when he would get up at night, you know, he would pull on the cord, and the light would swing back and forth, kind of doing a strobe effect like the Blair Witch Project. It was an eerie thing. That was Papaw. And also, all of the walls were decorated by gun racks. And on the gun racks were all of his shotguns. But you know, why waste a barrel that's just sticking out there waiting for something to be hung on it? Papaw had a lot of hernia surgeries in his life. Where else do you put your trusses except hanging on these shotgun barrels? And so that sort of added its own ambiance to the whole night. All a part of the fear that made you think, I just want to live until morning. Well, it was the feather bed. It was Papaw's feather bed, but the song that Kurt's about to sing is about Grandma's feather bed.
When I was a little bitty boy, just up off of the floor, used to go down to my grandma's house every other month or so. We had chicken pie and country ham, homemade butter on the bread. But the best darn thing about grandma's house was the great big feather bed. Well, it was 9 feet high and 6 feet wide, soft as a down-in chick. It was made from the feathers of 4 to 11 geese, took a home with the call for the tick. Yeah, but kids and 4 hound dogs and the piggy that we stole from the shed. Didn't get much sleep, but we had a lot of fun on Grandma's feather bed. Yeah. After supper, we sit around the fire, the old folks would spit and chew. Pa would talk about the farm and the war, Granny sing a ballad or two. Then I'd sit and listen and I'd watch the fire till the cobwebs fill my head. Next thing in the morning, wake up in the morning in the middle of the old feather bed. Well, it was 9 feet high and 6 feet wide, soft as a down-in chick. It was made from the feathers of 4 to 11 geese, like a hole on the claw for the tick. It was 8 kids and 4 hound dogs and the piggy that we stole from the shed. Didn't get much sleep, but we had a lot of fun on Grandma's feather bed. Yes, sir. said, I train 'em all, plus a gal down the road for grandma's feather bed. Well, it was 9 feet high, 6 feet wide, soft as a downy chick. It was made from the feathers of 411 geese and a whole cloth on a tick. It would hold 8 kids and 4 hound dogs, and the biggest that was sold from the shed. Didn't get much sleep, but we had a lot of fun on grandma's feather bed. We didn't get much sleep, but we had a lot of fun on grandma's feather bed.
All right. Very good. We're having some fun now. Thank you, and thank you, Barry. I think Marty Stewart would say, boy, I'm jealous. Yeah, it's not Mendelssohn's Elijah. It's not Vidor's Toccata, but we're having some fun now, aren't we? I'm going to call on Barbara Atchley to come up here and help me tell a story. There was a phenomenon. Where is Barbara? There she is. There was a phenomenon in the 1960s and 70s. You've heard of the 60s and 70s, haven't you, Kurt?
I was there for half of the 70s.
Oh, were you? All right.
I don't remember much, but
The 60s and 70s, and you can walk over there, and it was called youth revivals. You remember those? There were these youth revivals, and all of us preacher boys from Louisiana College would end up going out in the middle of nowhere in the swamps preaching these youth revivals every weekend. And then you had to drive back in the middle of the night on Sundays because Sunday was the last day of the evening of the youth revival. Then you had the fellowship afterward where you had to have the obligation conversation. And then eventually, you had to drive back. So we'd go to Ponchatoula, we'd go to Pontiac, we'd go to Thibodaux, Lafayette, all sorts of places. And so driving back in the middle of the night, you had to stay awake. And by staying awake, I would listen to the radio. So I'd listen to these preachers from all over. And fortunately, there was XCG in Monterrey, Mexico. Where's Don Janney? There you are. You remember XCG in Monterrey, Mexico? It was over the state line, so the FCC couldn't control it. And it had like 1 billion watts that it broadcast, bounced off the stratosphere, and you could hear it on the AM radio in Pineville, Louisiana. So I'd listen to all these preachers, but there was one show that was about music. And it was hosted by this older couple. And it was called the Mull, M-U-L-L, Singing Convention. And I thought that I was the only person that ever had heard of the Mull Singing Convention. But it turns out that Kathy, of course, had heard. But also, Barbara had heard a lot. Isn't that right? Why don't you tell the story from here?
Thank you. Is this on? Yeah. Finding connections with people has always been a delight to me, and early on I learned that James had gone to Southwestern Seminary just as my father had, and that the Marney family, I let him know that Carlisle and his siblings were friends of my parents from college days. Never did I think that a third connection would be quite so delightful, and that was when we learned we both knew about the Mull Singing Convention. This was an old-time gospel show that came out of Knoxville, Tennessee. James claimed he heard it from a station in Mexico, but I knew it belonged to Knoxville, and he didn't know that. Now, these gospel songs, James, as you know, they were not Sacred Harp songs. They were not even the gospel songs we sang on Sunday night when we loosened up a bit at our Baptist church. These were Saturday night gatherings in like the Civic Auditorium in Knoxville, where hand clapping, foot tapping, but not dancing, of course, were full-on performances. And I can understand why they kept you awake driving those dark roads of Louisiana.
Yeah.
In the interest of full disclosure, my interest in the Mull Singing Convention had nothing to do with the music. It was because as the youth at church, we thought imitating the moles was the height of entertainment. And so we watched their shows so we could master the art of being the Reverend and Mrs. Mull. Now, James, you know how every show for 60 years started.
That's right. Hello, friends. This is your old neighbor, Jay Basil.
And Mrs. Mull bringing you the Mull Singing Convention. And tonight, you know our show is honoring James Lamkin. He's been a pastor for many years and loved us when he was just a teenager. Now, this gravelly-voiced, legally blind pastor started on the radio in the 1930s in North Carolina, but in the early 40s moved to Knoxville and became a mover and a shaker in the world of gospel music. The Mull Singing Convention went on to become the longest-running locally produced show in the country. After his death in '06 and then hers in 2012, they went off the air, they closed the show, and now all we have left of the Mull Singing Convention is our precious memories.
That's right, Lady Mull. So, Lady Mull, who do we have next on the program?
Coming up next is the Kurt Thomas Singers. They're going to be doing Count Your Many Blessings.
Oh, that's a favorite of mine. That's a favorite of mine. Hang on just a minute. An applause for Barbara Atchley, AKA Lady Mull. There you go, one to prove it. One to prove it. In 2012, I walked across Spain. I did the Camino de Santiago, and I call it my Gracias tour, because every day I thought back of the blessings that had come my way in my life, and I did it per decade. So for 2 decades now, over 2 decades, I've spent that time with you. And as we approach Thanksgiving, I'm still on my Gracias tour. I remember George Smith. Remember George? He was one of our charter members, and he was not known for his cheery disposition. In other words, he did not audition for the part of Mary Poppins. But he was very generous and loved people. And he told me that Thanksgiving was his favorite time of the year because he was so grateful for what life had given him. He said that every time, this time of year, he would do like this favorite song said. He would count his many blessings, name them one by one, and it would always surprise him of what the Lord has done.
When upon Las billows you are tempest-tossed, when you are discouraged thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. Are you ever burdened with a load of care? Does the cross seem heavy you are called to bear? Count your many blessings, every doubt will fly, and you will keep singing as the days go by. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. So amid the conflict, whether great or small, do not be discouraged, God is over all. Count your many blessings, angels will attend. and comfort give you till your journey's end. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count many blessings, see what God has done. Count your many blessings, see what God has done.
Thank you, Kurt. And is not Kurt a blessing to us? Thank you. Thank you. Now, my sister and I used to sing this song back in First Baptist Arcadia, Louisiana. Would you like to join in on another verse? There are probably other stanzas. You're not. You're good. Well, as we move toward Thanksgiving, there's much to be thankful for. I was thinking back over the stories that have shaped me and shaped you over these years, and I thought back, Hal, of when we were in Toccoa, Georgia, because years ago, when it was a little bit easier to negotiate the traffic, you could actually get out of town on Friday without stopping. And so we went one year to Toccoa, Georgia for the church retreat. And and Sid Janney was the activities director, kind of the Rick Steves of Northside Drive. And on like a Saturday afternoon, she said, now you can go watch a waterfall fall, or you could sit on the porch and read a book, or you can go see the last Medicine Man show in the world in Georgia, in Toccoa. And we got there, and he was like living in a double-wide pagoda out in the middle of nowhere, Toccoa, Georgia. Pagoda in Toccoa, I guess it was. And so all of the list of characters that Hal listed, we went to see him. And I think Hal ended up standing by Mrs. Scott often, and her name was Frankie. And so he was still the performer. He wore a red top hat, you know, and he was always on with the lines that he had, like that snake oil. He gave us all the bottles of the snake oil, and he said, I said, does it work? He said, does it work? It's the finest snake oil in the world. You put a drop in the palm of your hand, and it'll drip out the other side. And Harold ended up standing by Frankie a lot, so every time he would hit a punchline like that, Frankie would say, the best that ever was. And he was. So if Sid Janney hadn't introduced me to Doc Scott, my life would have been a lot less. Sid, come up and tell us a few stories from home. Sid Janney.
This is the time when we tell some stories that have come from the congregation and other places to give you a sense of the love we have for James. Pam Wamberg summed up facing James' retirement by noting all his gifts as pastor, healer, shoulder to lean on, person of enlightened words, listener in chief, encourager, storyteller. Just as beautifully expressed, I think you'd all agree, Marshall Dewell and Murdy Cope have offered up their quilts as stories adorning the sanctuary to honor James. James and the multitude of quilts displayed all have lovely backstories. One quilt in the narthex is an interpretive tribute to Kennesaw Mountain. Another features jonquils, Smyrna's springtime flower. But the three quilts hanging inside and across the front of the sanctuary, you may have noticed them as you entered. They form a kind of triptych across the large windows of the front gable, expressing another larger story. The middle quilt was created by Murdy Cope's grandmother. And if you look carefully on either side of it, hang quilts showing how Murdy and Marshall then each interpreted the older quilt in their own style and their individual technique. Could there be a more appropriate symbol of James and his 23 years of telling Northside Drive story with intergenerational interplay, artfulness, family inspirations, and beautiful craftsmanship, all offered up ultimately to the glory of God in our world? Now this is a message that came to me October the 25th, 2020, and I wish I could read it like this person, but it's Garrison Keillor. It's James's big-time man, Garrison Keillor. Dear Pastor Lamkin, congratulations on your retirement. I'm assuming it's voluntary. And welcome to the ranks of the contemplative elders, which includes me. It's a good life. I speak as an Episcopalian spending the pandemic in New York in a mostly Jewish and somewhat Hispanic neighborhood. It's good to be a white male in the midst of many colors and tribes. I recommend this. People are individuals, not types, but you already know this. I would just say that in my fiction, I could not create a character named James Lamkin. And if I did, I absolutely could not make him a pastor of a church called Northside Drive Baptist Church. I could also not invent a drive-in Baptist church. People would take offense. Do you have a drive-up communion window, or do people park and get out of their cars? Sometimes the organist at St. Michael's gets a little too Anglican for my taste, and I wish I were in a Baptist church so we could sing Abide With Me, my favorite hymn, or How Great Thou Art. But we just have to get along with what we have. God bless you, sir, and stay out of the sand traps lest you sink. Be well, carry on. Garrison Keillor.
Wow. He really wrote that? He really wrote that?
He really wrote that.
My goodness.
And I'll just go ahead and say, after the last home companion, I just sent a letter, a note by email. He responded that afternoon. And I've been holding this gem since then. Here's a lovely poem. It's by Mary Dean. It's called To the Main Man for Many, a rhyme for the James Lamkin times. There are those who don't betray and never slip away. They call us to press on and never come empty to God's throne. One of those heroic souls who doesn't seem to let us grow old pushes and pulls until he makes our hearts full. And then he doesn't leave, never to let us grieve without his loving presence. That is James Lamkin's essence. I've never met a pastor who never seems to meet a disaster and who rises to every single mess, vowing to meet the next test. He does it through the word, the song, the voice imitation so strong of Carlisle Marney, Will Campbell, John Claypool, all come alive to feed the soul. As you go, James, know you have our blessing, so please enjoy your resting. Ken brought some shoes for you to fill, and it would surely be Carlisle Marnie's will that you climb mountains and walk valleys, but do try to avoid the back alleys, and may God forever hold you in the palm of his hand. Mary Dean presents Boots to James.
Wow. That's all? A letter from Garrison Keeler and Carlisle Marnie's shoes? That's been a big day. I can't believe that. How about that? Garrison Keeler.
Well, you'll have to tell him that I was very appreciative.
And very grateful. Thanks. Steve Shealy gifted us greatly on the mountain dulcimer last time. Tonight it's the hammer dulcimer. Steve.
Oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I am constrained to be. Let thy goodness, like a fetter, bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart. Oh, take and seal it. Seal it for thy courts above.
Thank you, Steve. My sister and I grew up about a half mile from the railroad track, and we could always tell that a train was coming, not because of the whistle, but because of the hound dogs howling. They could always hear the whistle before it got here. But I think the train always had something to do with our lives. We lived near Uncle Henry Mitchell, who was the station master at the little depot in town, and I would go down and talk with him about Morse code. You know, who else do you talk to about dots and dashes about that? Also, our grandfather, our maternal grandfather, was coming home on the troop train and met his granddaughter, our Aunt Dorcas, because he had left when she was little to go in the war. And she looked and said, "Mama, who is that man that's looking at me?" It was her father, our grandfather. And then also we had a lot of other things that sort of connected us to the train. We would even ride the train to go to the dentist. In Shreveport, Louisiana, you'd get on the train, go there, and then ride the trolleys around. One of the writers that's known as the father of American country music is named Jimmy Rogers. He was born in Meridian, Mississippi, and he grew up during the Depression, died way too young at 35 years old. But while as a kid, he worked as a water boy, and he got to know the hobos that were riding the rails. And they taught him stories, and they taught him songs, and they taught him how to pick a guitar. Matter of fact, one of the songs that he wrote because of those days, our father used to sing to us. And we lived long enough to hear our father sing it to our kids and rock them to sleep. I want to dedicate this song to my sister and in honor of our father.
1, 2, 3. Yo-de-yo, all around the water tank, waiting for a train, 1,000 miles away from home, sleeping in the rain. I walked up to a brakeman to give him a line of talk. He said, "If you got money, boy, I see that you don't want. I haven't got a nickel, not a penny I can show. Get off, you railroad bum." And he slammed the boxcar door. Texas, a state I dearly love. Wide open spaces all around me, the moon and stars up above. Nobody seems to want me or lend me a helping hand. I'm on my way from Frisco, going back to Dixieland. Empty, and my heart is full of pain. I'm 1,000 miles away from home, waiting for a train. Lordy-o, Lordy-o.
All right, thank you, Kurt. That was a little better than our father could sing. but it brought back good memories. Well, if Jimmy Rogers was the father of country music, Woody Guthrie was the godfather of folk music. And during the 1930s, he rambled all over the Southwest as he went west, and he saw the Dust Bowl, and he saw the poverty and the hunger there. And when he came back east, he wanted to write a song. A new song had just come out, written by Irving Berlin and sung by Kate Smith, God Bless America. But Woody Guthrie said he found it jingoistic. Not an interesting word. You don't hear much these days. Jingoistic and out of touch with the America that he had just been in touch with. And so he wanted to write a song, he said, not as a tribute to nationalism, but as a testimony to humanity. And the more I listen to this song, the more it sounds like a psalm from the Bible to me. It contains great promise, but it also contains prophetic protest. Like one of the stanzas, I don't know if this is one that the group's going to sing, but one of the stanzas has got several. Here's one. In the squares of the city, in the shadow of the steeple, near the relief office, I saw my people. They stood there hungry. I stood there wondering, is this land still made for you and me? In 2009, some of you heard at the presidential inauguration of Obama that Pete Seeger, who, he's part of that Mount Rushmore of folk music as well, and the boss, Bruce Springsteen, sang on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And they sang with a multi-ethnic youth choir, and they sang this prophetic but also wonderful song that grabs your heart and sends you flying with wings. It is, this land was made for you and me.
As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway, saw below me the golden valley. Oh, this land was made for you and me. This land is your land. sun was shining, and I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling. A voice was chanting as the fog was lifting. Oh, this land was made for you and me. Oh, this land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water. Oh, this land was made for you and me. Now, if I could please get my background singers. They flew all the way here from just across the road. If y'all could please. Here we go. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Oh, this land was made for you and me.
Wonderful. A big hand for Jolene and Levon. It's so good they take after their mother.
I hear you. I hear you.
All right, here's the last song. And so as we get ready for this last song, I hear it as a prayer and a reminder of what quilts us, what connects us together during this anxious time and even beyond time. And it will be something that has stitched your life into my life and your heart into my heart. It's a reminder of who we are, and it's a reminder of who we love. And Kurt, I don't know if you need any help with this, but feel free to call on all the kids. And,
I hear you.
And
Anybody who wants to sing. Or can people sing?
with socially distant.
You know what? Sing with me in your heart.
Yeah, you can, if able, please hum along. And we'll just go for it.
All right, my brother. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I was standing by my window on a cold and cloudy day when I saw that earth come rolling for to carry my mother away. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord? I follow close behind her, try to hold up and be brave, but I could not hide my sorrow when they laid her in that grave. Will the circle be unbroken? My and my, Lord, my and my. There's a bitter on the waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Very well. Well, I went back home and home was lonely since my mother, she had gone. All my brothers, sisters crying, what a home so sad and alone. Will the circle be unbroken? By and by, Lord, by and by. But there's a better home waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. In the sky, Lord, in the sky. Very well, Trevor.
There. Would you like to join in giving a standing ovation to the band? Oh, man, that was wonderful. That was wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna lay my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay my burden down by the riverside and study. Oh, no more. Oh, I ain't gonna study oh, no more. Ain't gonna study oh, no more. But I ain't gonna study oh, no more, no more. I ain't gonna study oh, no more. Study oh, no more. No, I ain't gonna study oh, no more.
All right, everybody, thank you for coming. And I'm glad you're here. And also speak to Marshall and to Murdy afterward if you'd like to ask a question about these quilts or any of the folks that have brought a quilt tonight. Remember that on December the 6th, we'll have Home for the Holidays, the last of these 3 home companions if COVID doesn't shut us down. We're grateful that Ramblin' Hal Meeks was a part of the story tonight. Valerie Waters on the piano, knocked it dead. Diane DeLee on the bass. Steve Shealy on the hammer dulcimer. Next time, Keith Walker will be playing a handbell solo, and Joel Stauford will be on the piano. Andrea Johnson and the all-ukulele family band will probably play again next time. And of course, we are grateful for Kurt Thomas and for special guest Barry Waldrop. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming. You can leave now.